which is 28 Beckenham Road. And then we've got one on the actual Good Friday in one of our favourite venues, which is in the Mansion House in Beckenham Place Park, which is in Beckenham. Please follow us on Eventbrite, follow the Queen's Walking Group or Queens and Rudy J on Eventbrite, and you'll get the instant notifications of all the different events and activities that we have forthcoming. So we've got a wonderful market coming up, and we also have our big celebration anniversary dinner. So the Queens would have been walking, something that started out for just 6 weeks is now 2 years old. So we're going to have our wonderful celebration dinner, which is going to be taking place on Saturday, the 2nd of July, and it's going to be an auspicious occasion. So all the details are going to be posted into the chat. So, or if anything, you know, please do, you can always contact me, WhatsApp me, and I can give you all the information. So what have we got coming up? Well, we've done Queen's Black Skin Rocks, and that was fantastic a couple of weeks ago. We had a Zoom party and we were just rocking and rolling, and just the lady DJs were just spinning the tunes. So that's coming up. Can't tell you when, because the lady DJs, they're just on the circuit. They're busy playing out at all different sorts of events. But as soon as we get that sorted out, please book your tickets quick, because it's only 100 free tickets via Eventbrite. And when it's done, it's done. Yeah. What have we got coming up? We've got the Queen's Breast Cancer Awareness Zoom session that's coming up. So we've got our lovely Dr. Azizi Sase will be coming onto the platform, giving us lots of advice, information around breast awareness. And we've also got the Black Breast Cancer Awareness Charity, who I discovered the other day. They will come onto the platform also. We're going to be having a conversation with some fashion icons. I'm telling you, this Queen has been working hard in the background to pull all these fantastic Zooms together. We've got Queen's Women Empowerment session coming up with the vision boards. And oh goodness, I can't think what else, but we've got lots of things coming up, so just watch out. Yes, we have some wonderful Zoom sessions coming your way. Not as regular, mind you, because as you know, I used to Zoom on a Saturday morning, but the Queens are back stepping again. So yes, please look out for our newsletter. If you want to be kept up to date, we have a fantastic newsletter that we release on almost on a monthly basis now. So there's loads of information in there. This Zoom event is being live streamed through Facebook, and it's also being streamed through YouTube. It's on our Facebook page, We Love Health and Wellbeing. Please check us out on Instagram, Queens and Rudy J Media. So it just leaves me to say, if you have your pens and pads, notebooks ready, so let's get into today's session. Yes, Queens, the science of melanin and nutrition. Queens, the science of melanin, biology, nutrition. It's a beginner's levels course that we've got the wonderful Joe Dash on the platform. He's going to talk to you about that. We've been on an amazing journey with Joe from last January, and we did our first cohort on intermittent fasting, and we have had some, I'll tell you, some phenomenal results. It's been absolutely fantastic. So the course will explore the fundamental relationship between food and melanin, but I'm not going to give too much away. I'm going to hand over to Joe. He's going to tell you all about this wonderful course that's been created out of all the sort of work that we've been doing. So Joe, are you on the platform? I'm sure I saw you come on. Welcome.
Yes, I'm here. How are you doing, Joan?
I'm very well, thank you. Very, very well. Lovely to see you.
How's everyone doing? Greetings
to everyone. Happy New Year, by the way.
Yeah, Happy New Year to the whole Queen's group. Happy New Year to you too, Joan. Looking good, looking great.
Thank you, my dear. So yes, over to you, Joe. So
thank you so much. So my name is Joe Dash. Most of you have known me from running the 30-day challenge, but if not, I am a melanin researcher, teacher, author. I'm also a nutritionist and a nutritional therapist. So a lot of my work is circled around figuring out what is the best way to get our people educated, number one, about our own existence, but also how health plays a vital importance in our future, not just our past. I spend a lot of my time just researching, talking to clients, dealing with their health issues, and also lecturing at universities about melanin and the power of that and how that can be an interesting subject for not just the pharmaceutical industry, but even the healthcare system, to how to deal with Black women in care, how to deal with Black men as well, because our genetics is very much different. So today is just like a little taster on some of the information that we're going to be breaking down on our 6 weeks program, which is going to be really, really jam-packed with deep knowledge about your melanin and how it really influences your psychological, emotional, and physiological state. And also understanding the cultural aspects. There's always cultural context to the science, and letting you know that your ancestors have been up on this information for centuries, and it's nothing new. All the information you're going to hear today lodges itself in your DNA anyway. I'm here to speak life into that and kind of awaken some of that ancestral knowledge that resonates with our people. So hopefully we'll get through that in good time, and also have a Q&A afterwards. So if you have any questions or things you want to know more about, then hopefully I've got about 10-15 minutes afterwards to really do a deep dive Q&A. So let's get into our presentation. There we go. Right. So cool. So I call this presentation Aboriginal Science and Nutrition because it's the same thing, because it's melanin and nutrition. The word Aboriginal means the original person, the original man, and the science of that original man and their nutrition. So that's the whole point of this presentation, just to give you like a taster of some of the conversations that we'll be deep dive into when we run our 6 weeks program. It's going to be very, very deep, intense, but also if you've seen me lecture, my job is to make sure that we engage in thoughtful conversation and it's enlightening, and it's able to kind of bring you closer to yourself, to your spiritual journey or health journey, because all of those things are encompassed in understanding the dynamics of melanin and how melanin works. So the first thing is being aware, right? We've got to be aware of exactly what time it is. We are being biocolonized by the food we eat, the environments, all of these kind of things. We're being colonized on a biochemical level, right? And how I choose to describe it, or define it, should I say, is the systematic manipulation of the DNA and psychospiritual enslavement of the mind, body, and soul. The genetically constructed paradigm consists of the art of being controlled on a biomolecular level in order to dictate thought patterns and behavior through atmospheric and nutritional biochemical warfare. What does that mean? It means that there is a systematic way of trying to influence you on a biological level, because as we're going to learn down the line, food influences thought and behavior. There's tons of research on that. And the food groups we take and select have a lot to do with our identity and how we see ourselves. So colonially, if you take away people's food, you're taking away a piece of their identity, you're taking away a piece of themselves and who they are, because food is tied to identity. And what we've also learned is that there is a deep correlation, should I say, between low socioeconomical living and disease, and how we deal with food as a coping mechanism for trauma. So all of these things is what I'm basically talking about. So the genetic constructive paradigm is based on how we take in the atmosphere and the water we drink and the food we eat, and how that controls reality, and to dictate thought patterns and behavior is because how we eat and feed is in line with our behavior. And why do I say this? Is because the melanated human being has the archetype of real estate inhibited by a solar being that occupies this reality. That means the Black man's genetic is one of the oldest genetics, if not the oldest genetic on the planet. And to what do we claim the status? Is firstly establishing there is a corporeal state of matter, and that which animates it, which is the spirit. The sun gives life to every organic living thing on the planet, which makes them phototrophic by nature. It means we are children of the sun. Sunlight is deeply important. And I'm going to stress that throughout this presentation at some points to really take home why it's so important that you understand you are phototrophic by nature, meaning that sunlight has a symbiotic relationship with your own existence. And this is something that our ancient Kemetic ancestors understood. They always talked about solar veneration. Because really we didn't worship the sun, we understood its symbiotic relationship with the DNA of mankind. So we understood all of those kind of things. And the carbon-based melanin is the best attenuation of sunlight, specifically at 380 nanometers, which converts photons, which is sunlight radiation, or quantum units of light, quantum meaning the smallest unit of something, into energy used in the cells of the African. And I'm going to prove this by I think it was a Scandinavian scientist by Fritz Popp. Fritz Albert Popp, a scientist big on photosynthesis and plants and things of that nature, he talks about how sunlight is a very important part of our being, and how your body emits light radiation that stimulates cellular repair. And we're going to deep dive further into that in the course as well. So an introduction to melanin. We've heard this word melanin from either me or Brother Leon Marshall, right, who's doing a fantastic job. And you hear it from us what melanin is. We talk about skin complexion, we talk about hormones, we talk about immunity. Well, melanin is all of those things, right? It's an organic dark carbon chemical pigment substance that gives Black people their skin color, the iris in their eyes or their hair. Melanin is also responsible for the overall well-being of the Black man and woman via the pineal gland, which is responsible for the psychospiritual consciousness and physiological function of the body. So melanin is everywhere within the body. It's responsible for your intelligence, responsible for your ability to feel loved, connected. It's part of your adrenaline hormone. It's your immunity. Melanin is also part of your behavioral mechanisms, and the list goes on and on. But generally speaking, your nervous system, brain function, hormone secretion, immune system, muscle, tissue, bones, reproductive organs, oxytocin, dopamine are both melanin derivatives. Blood regulation, cellular activity is down to how melanin is functioning in the body. Not just Black people, but all races of people are influenced by melanin on this level. If you want to have a deep dive, then in my book, The Melanin Effect, I give a much more in-depth analysis of that. But generally speaking, melanin has influence over everything that is anything to do with nature, right? So melanin also exists in nature. Plant melanin, everything organic, alive has melanin in it, from fungi to bacteria to the birds in the sky, to the most venomous snake on the planet, or to the whales or whoever, or whatever. They all are under the influence of melanin in its own biophysical reality, okay? So melanin is that key to life in itself. Oops, sorry. So biochemistry of melanin. Melanin means Black amino. Is the color pigment composed of a hydrocarbon chain, which has various amino nitrogen-based compounds attached to it. A lot of fancy words for saying it's a carbon with hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen together, okay? So in a carbon rings, you've seen those little kind of pentagon shaped rings in chemistry, in your chemistry class, or if you haven't seen it, I'll show you a picture of it in a short little while. But that carbon ring is attached to a hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, and that's what makes melanin a much more powerful molecule. It's actually carbon that gives melanin the ability to absorb energy and bind with other molecules while retaining stability and coherence. So it is really carbon that's on the periodic table. Melanin is not on the periodic table, right? Melanin is a Greek word, which means black, black amino or black substance. So melanos, from the Greek word melanos. So melanin itself is not even a scientific terminology. It's not an atom. It's not on a periodic table. It is carbon that gives melanin its powers. It's robust properties and durability. It's really the carbon that's doing that. And carbon comes into different ways. You have isotope carbons, you have carbons as graphite, you have carbons as diamonds. Carbon has many, many different formalities, but it still maintains its stability and coherence, which means it does not lose its properties because it's binded to something else. And you have this in your system. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about the carbon ring, right? As you can see it here, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, six-sided. So I don't think it's a pentagon. This is six-sided shape, but this is what we're talking about with a hydrocarbon chain, with the HO there, and with nitrogen-based compounds on it. When carbon alongside natural biological minerals congregate in a cell, they create a melanosome, the cell being called the melanocyte. A melanocyte is the cells that actually produce melanin on the skin level. By receiving melanin-stimulated hormones from the pituitary gland produced in the brain, we are able to build and regenerate cells with high electric charge, making us superconductors of energy and solar phototrophic-based beings. So all of that is to say, basically, you have this complex carbon molecule that's able to transmute energy, so to take on photons, which are quantum units of light, and convert those into usable kinetic energy. If you don't have enough melanin, you won't be able to do this because you don't have enough melanin to protect the DNA from radiation and damage. So we know what DNA is, right? Deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA is made of chemical building blocks called nucleotides. These building blocks are made of 3 parts: phosphate group, a sugar book, and one of the 4 types of nitrogen bases, right? Now, L-tyrosine is a chemical building block called amino acid. Now, L-tyrosine is found on the 11th chromosome, and that is where melanogenesis takes place. It is through the metabolization of L-tyrosine we start to make melanin, right? So in L-tyrosine on your 11th chromosome, it's responsible, that's L-tyrosine is an amino acid, right? But it's also a foundation of proteins, a class of molecules upon which all life depends. Amino acids, however, also have their own individual and unique function. L-tyrosine is specifically supposed to production of neurotransmitter hormones and pigment known as melanin, because also that L-tyrosine has to create those neurotransmitters such as serotonin and melatonin as well, right? So when you make black or white people, what we're going to learn is that you split into 2 groups, right? So L-tyrosine is the amino acid through the enzyme called L-tyrosine, called tyrosinase, goes through a metabolic process to create dopaquinone. At the dopaquinone level, you can go through an oxidation process or the use of oxygen to make melanin, meaning black people, right? Melanin requires oxygen to go through an oxidation process, right? An example of the oxidation process is like banana, right? You see the black spots on the banana's oxidizing. When you have an organic compound like an apple and you cut it and you leave it out, it starts to go brown, it's going through the same process. It's going through a melanogenesis. So that dark spot you see on these fruits is when it's going through an oxidation process. The oxidation process, the side effect of that is carbon. And that's why you see the black spots, because carbon is in organic matter is dark in color. To make Europeans Caucasians, you need pheomelanin. In pheomelanin, that oxygen is replaced by sulfur. Then your oxygen gets replaced with sulfur, and sulfur makes pheomelanin. And pheomelanin is, pink, ginger, white of hue. So black people also have pheomelanin in them, in their mouth, in the vaginal canal, in the penile canal. You still have pheomelanin in you because you're the archetypal real estate from which all genetic makeup spawned from. But the fundamental difference is oxygen is what happens to make black or brown people, and it's called eumelanin, and pheomelanin is when that oxygen is replaced with sulfur, right? You can smell it in European people hair. When they're in the rain and stuff like that, you can smell the sulfur. The sulfur is what you're basically smelling if you smell a European person's hair, for example, right? It's part of our genetic makeup. It's what makes us humans as people, right? So just to reiterate, pheomelanin imparts a pink to reddish hue depending upon the concentration. Pheomelanins are particularly concentrated in the lips, nipples, glands of the penis, the vagina. When a small amount of brown eumelanin in hair, which would otherwise cause blonde hair, is mixed with red pheomelanin, the result is red hair. So eumelanin is produced by the oxidation of the amino acid tyrosine, followed by a polymerization, which is the bringing together of multiple amino acids. The pigment is produced in a specialized cell group called the melanocyte. Now, why it's so interesting to understand about the melanocyte basically has tentacles or called dendrites coming out of the cell, right? So if you imagine, I'm using my hand as an example, right? So you've got the cell here and you've got my fingers, right? So my fingers are going to represent the dendrites and my palm is the cytoplasm and everything else like that. This is what a melanocyte looks like. Why this is important, in ancient Dogon society, the melanocyte is known as Dada, which is the mother, which means mother in ancient Dogon language, means mother, right? Now, the story behind Dada is the spider in ancient and Dogon mythology of the spider that weaved subatomic particles into material particles, which means it's what wove you in the womb before you materialized as a human being, right? So you have to go from subparticle atoms into atoms that become human beings, because atoms are 99% of nothingness. It is the boson particle that puts us into three-dimensional state. But without going too deep into the science of it for now, just understand that, our ancient ancestors understood creation and string theory. They understood how things can go from subatomic particles into third dimensional state. So the story of creation by the ancient Dogons is known as Amma's egg. So that's something I teach on a 6 weeks program, but also something you can look into if you're interested in that. But our ancestors understood the creation of human beings, and we understood the science through our own allegorical systems and symbolic mythologies that help us understand and anthropomorphize the principles that governed us about creation and material realm. So we're all birthed from that. Photons. So a photon, as I mentioned earlier, is an elementary particle, the quantum unit of light, and all other forms of electromagnetic radiation. It is the force carrier for the electromagnetic force, even when static via virtual photons. Photons are the smallest quantum unit of light. In your body as a Black person, your ability is to take light and manipulate it into cellular regeneration and convert it into something usable and sustainable in the Black man and the Black woman. This is why when we're in the country, in the Western world, in the Northern Hemisphere, we struggle a lot. We go pale on our skin complexion, we get more sicker, we have more problems, joints start hurting you. All these things start kicking in because you are phototrophic. And the more we deny you of sunlight, the more sick and weaker you're going to be, right? So these photons, when they hit your skin, they stimulate melanogenesis. Melanogenesis is just a scientific word for the beginning of melanin. Remember, melanos means Black substance. Genesis means the beginning or the creation or beginning of Black substance. So melanogenesis takes place in the melanocyte. And in that melanocyte is where you have a space called the melanosome, which we're going to learn about in our 6 weeks program, that talks about how melanin is created and secreted into adjacent cells called eukaryotic cells, which are your normal cells that you have underneath your skin. So melanin is such a powerful tool in that. And photons and light is controlling and modulating this. How do we know this? When you go in the sun, what color do you turn? Everything organic underneath the sun will go darker in color. That's just the way it's set up. It will go darker in color, okay? So because it's going darker in color, that's the proof of melanogenesis happening, because through that oxidation process that I mentioned earlier, the result of that is getting more darker, right? And the sunlight is manipulating that. Normally when cells want to communicate with other cells, they send chemicals, they send proteins from one side of cell to another cell to pass on messages, right? That's a chemical reaction. But mostly in melanated people, light is what is the conductor that actually arranges the mechanisms or triggers the chain reaction of melanin in the body. Is done through light. So we are light beings by just nature of just who we are. Hence why the creator puts us in the equator. Why? That's the most place you get the most sunlight from. Do you understand what I'm saying? Everything in nature is harmonious and perfect in its own design, and nothing is flawless in its own concept. For us to understand it, we must first look into ourselves, because we are an extension of nature, okay? Now, here it becomes interesting, because now this is the research, because I always love to bring the research to kind of voice to the point or add on to the conversation. During his work with the chemical, Dr. Fritz Albert Popp learned that 380 nanometers, remember I mentioned this earlier about biocolonialism, about the best attenuation of light at 380 nanometers. The wavelength altered by carcinogens is also the wavelength that cells prefer to use to repair themselves. After exposure to intense UV light, cells quickly self-repair when they are exposed to very weak UV light, particularly that with a wavelength of 380 nanometers. Popp hypothesized that cancer results from a disruption of cells' photo repair system. So now, if your cells are not using that light correctly, it can become carcinogenous and become a cancer problem for people of color. His hypothesis raised questions. What in the body is producing this very weak light that powers the repair system? Popp and his student Bernard Ruth found that all living systems store light energy. Think about how deep that is, right? So this is the research now, because sometimes when Black people talk about our greatness or we talk about our biology, everyone thinks it's, some made up stuff that we just kind of pulled out of nowhere. No, this is the research, right? It's always important to bring this to the table, right? So all living things store light. Light is a very important thing. And since you are phototrophic and inspired by light, it only makes sense that light is the reason that your body is able to repair and do a lot of the things that it does, right? So this is quite interesting. Popper and his student Bernard Ruth found that all living things store light energy, photons, acquired from the sun and from plants consumed as food, right? Which is photosynthesis in the DNA, of course. This stored light is released as very weak, extremely coherent biophotons. Photons switch on the body's process like a conductor launching each individual instrument into a collective sound. So you got to imagine this is what light is doing inside your body. It's creating this harmonious, rhythmic functionality where melanin is able to function at its best. This is why where you can try and get to a hot country at least once in a year, because you just need that. And we're going to learn more about that on the 6 weeks program. But I just want to bring home the point about how much of light energy exists within the body. And when your light is dim and your light is low, disease is the result of that. So our ancient ancestors, how they look at melanin, right? We've been obsessed with melanin since the ancient Egyptian times. And this is how our ancestors looked at it. Melanin is a complex carbon-based compound with a hydrogen and oxygen molecular structure that has an electromagnetic charge, a consciousness. Electromagnetic fields hold in the consciousness. With its undoubtedly connection to the solar and cosmological space, it is safe to say melanin is pure energy derived from sunlight and earth matter. So you are a byproduct of stardust. You are a byproduct of sunlight and earth matter. Your melanin is ancient and it transcends third dimensional state. They even found organic melanin in space. And I'll talk about this on my 6 weeks program as well. Because what you don't understand is that your melanin is such a complex molecule that's forever evolving and changing, that in order to understand it, you must first understand self, right? Our ancient ancestors had a fascination with melanin in their texts and paintings. You will find green and black melanated gods, the green meant copper and the black carbon in the ancient mystery system, which the science dictated when put together in a cyclic motion creates electricity and magnetic fields. Therefore, they were biological forms that retain the magnetic and electrical energy state of the electromagnetic spectrum. What does all that fancy jargon means? It means when you are healthy as a black person, your electromagnetic radiation, your field is much more bigger. So your ability to manifest, your ability to draw things in your life amplify by the health levels of the individual that contains this light, right? And our ancestors spoke about medical astrology and all these kind of things of how each internal system is connected to a solar construct, because we were deep in the science of biology and healing from time ago. Now, there's a book I want to recommend to everybody, and it's called The Mucusless Diet by Dr. Arnold R. Hett, right? It's called The Mucusless Diet by Dr. Arnold R. Hett. His book was revolutionary at its time and how he died was very suspicious. I think he was killed because they said this man just fell on the side of this pavement and bashed his head and died. But his wife begs to differ because he spoke about the Western diet being very poison, and how his travels to Africa made him understand how to eat properly. This is a direct quote from the book. I've got a copy of the book, but you should get a copy of Dr. R. Hett's Mucusless Diet book. In my first published article, I promulgated the gigantic idea that the white race is unnatural, a sick and pathological one. This is a white man saying this, right? So I'm not trying to use this to bring down any other race or things of that nature, but I just find this excerpt very interesting as how he relates it to food and just what we do genetically. And this was in the 1700s, by the way, as well, right? Due to the lack of coloring mineral salts, second, the blood is continually overfilled with white blood corpuscles, mucus, waste, and white color. Therefore, the white appearance of the entire body, right? This is page 42, blood composition. He also goes on to say, to see how few kinds and how little food they ate, to learn that they are about the same kinds of foods that their ancestors ate, gives reason for the superior qualities of the old Egyptian diet. So he travels in his book to ancient Egypt and realizes their diet was very minimal and very ancient and cultural. And because it was cultural, people was not sick and dying from random diseases because people ate properly. The only time in ancient Kemet people started to die of diseases is when we had invaders or we abandoned our cultural traditions. So I found this excerpt very interesting. So it's just something that if you want to read more about it, Dr. Arnold R. Hett, The Mucusless Diet, he deep dives into it. Even the finding of stem cells from Henrietta Lacks. Some of you may know about Henrietta Lacks, but it's worth a read and a research. Henrietta Lacks was an African-American woman who was the unwitting source of cells which were cultured by Dr. George Otto J. to create the first non-human immortal cell line for medical research, known as the HeLa cell line, which is how they found stem cells. They found it in a Black woman, and they did not use anesthetic or none of that when they were sourcing this. They took out her womb without her permission or something of that nature. But if you want to read more about Henrietta Lacks, there's tons of articles and stories about her situation outside of this. But it's very important for us to know that our cells have helped push a lot of the medical science you see ahead, because stem cell research is a very powerful thing. And it's a very good thing, because at the end of the day, unless someone's lost a limb or been paralyzed or things of that nature, or the baby's in trouble during pregnancy, stem cells can be a very powerful tool if human beings, we can harness it for the right reasons. But it's very, very powerful. So while we are sick, a disease is a particular abnormal condition, disorder, or structure or function that affects part or all of the organism. The casual study of disease is called pathology. Disease is often construed as a medical condition associated with specific symptoms and signs. It may be caused by factors originally from an external source, such as an infectious disease, or it may be the cause of by internal dysfunction, such as autoimmune disease. Why are we sick, right? Because of the food we eat, right? A lot of the food we eat is very, very damaging to how we function as people, which is something I go deep into the 6 weeks program as well. Melanin is your immune system. The carbon and oxygen in the dark plasma body neutralizes all the viruses by either binding to it, pushing it out of the system, or creating an unsafe environment for the virus or bacteria to multiply. Therefore, an important part of Black health is fasting. We must exercise this at least one weekend out of the month. Fasting is a big part. It charges up your melanin, and your melanin is a big part of your immune system. Your melanocyte, which produces melanin, is part of your innate system, immune system. Melanocytes are part of the immune system. So your immunity is your melanin. It's not white blood cells, because if you have too many white blood cells in your blood, you end up with leukemia, right? As a melanated individual, your carbon and your hydrocarbon change and your carbon of your melanin is your big part of your immune system that binds to metals and different things of that nature. But when we are unhealthy and we have pre-existing diseases and conditions, then we weaken our immune system, right? This is why Dr. Sebi famously said, we're either eating to live or we're eating to die. One of my favorite culinary historians, Dr. Jessica, the most honorable Dr. Jessica Harris, a Black woman that's powerful, like all Black women are. She helped us understand that food tradition holds symbols and meanings that serves as a historical roadmap. This is such a powerful line, because what it's talking about is that the food you eat is lodged in your tradition, holds symbols and meaning that serves as a historical roadmap, right? What am I talking about? It means if I say Chinese food, you know what type of food I'm talking about. If I talk about Indian food, you know what type of food I'm talking about. If I talk about Caribbean food, African food, you know what kind of food I'm talking about. Food holds significant symbolism in one's own cultural identity, you right? If you're a Black person, we go out to eat, people will expect you to eat certain types of food, right? Not because we're always right, because I'm a vegetarian, I'm plant-based, and in the mainstream consciousness may not seem like the Black thing to do, but actually it's more closer to the most natural thing we can do, is eat more vegetables, because that's what we're wired for. But Dr. Jessica Harris makes this point, and this point is very, very powerful, because it speaks to how much of food is a big part of your identity. The reason why most of us struggle to change our eating patterns, because it's tied to our beliefs and value systems. And until we understand that, we won't understand why we're still addicted to a lot of the foods we love to eat. And food becomes a crutch, like a drug will, like weed, like cocaine, like anything. Food is a drug just as much as all these other things. And they are used as comfort. And that's what's killing a lot of Black people, because we are experiencing the John Henryism symptoms. And John Henryism is talking about the socio-economical impacts of disease in people. For people of color, our education about health and our perspective on food is very, 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 it's very disillusioned. It's very away from the reality, because the way we look at food is become very toxic to our own well-being, because food should be in moderation, there should be structure, there should be a balanced diet. If you don't have a balanced diet, you will struggle with health. A balanced diet means you have enough macronutrients and micronutrients on your plate. Examples of your macronutrients is your carbohydrates, proteins, and fibers. Your micronutrients, which is your trace minerals, as you might know it as, is your selenium, iodine, and things of that nature. So now this is why our ancestors were less sick, right? There's so many nuances in here. I'm gonna try and make you focus on the actual thing I want you to focus on. By studying the hair of the ancient Egyptians, a team of French scientists were able to determine that Egyptians ate a primarily vegetarian diet on a consistent basis. Given the abundance of resources available to this particular ancient civilization, it appears that a vegetarian diet was more of a choice than a necessity. The article published in Inside Science explains that eating a lot of meat is a recent phenomenon. In ancient cultures, vegetarianism was more common. But this is not to say that ancient Egyptians weren't eating meat because they didn't have ready access to it every day the way we do. Scientists highlight the fact that fishing was a common practice along the Nile, and yet scientists did not find fish proteins in the Egyptian diet, but rather it just seemed that the diet was high in fruit, vegetables, and grains was part of their cultural tradition. Because if you want to understand a civilization, you need to understand their spiritual systems. The spiritual systems talks about being part of the ecosystem of life, right? If I can exist without inflicting harm, then that's what I need to do. But it doesn't mean I'm trying to demonize you eating meat or fish at this moment in time. I'm just giving you an example that the whole concept of eating all this meat and fish is a recent phenomenon because of the physical supply chain, of course, but also because of the boom of the industrialization of food. We have participated in this overconsumption culture. But in reality, your body's not wired to eat 3 meals a day. Yeah, for people that didn't be on my 30-day challenge, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Right, just a few more slides and we get into some Q&A questions with the public. Hunger regulations. Your hypothalamus controls hunger, right? It is your hypothalamus that controls hunger alongside ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. Ghrelin, being the hunger hormone, is signaling your hypothalamus to say, I'm hungry. A lot of the times also, you might not even be hungry. You just dehydrated, because also dehydration can manifest itself as hunger. You might feel you're hungry, and I'm sure people in the life today have had water when they were hungry, or they thought they were hungry. They had one glass of water and they were full. Excuse me, and they were full. So we've seen that before a bunch of times. But also, if you find yourself hungry all the time, you lack a lot of fiber and protein in your diet. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, responds to fiber and protein. So if you don't have enough fiber and protein, you have too many refined starchy carbohydrates like your rice and peas and pasta and all this stuff in your diet, you're always going to be hungry, especially if you're having sugar, a lot of sugar in your diet. Having a high glycemic diet doesn't mean you're having chocolate or pastry all the time. It means rice, pasta, potato, all these things. High glycemic diets are just referring to what quickly affects blood sugar levels in the body. And craving is also a psychological thing that it deals with your reward and pleasure system. Those who don't have food cravings might say such cravings are all in your head. And new research suggests that they are right. It is all in our heads. Several specific areas of our brain, actually. Areas of our brain responsible for memory and sensing pleasure are particularly to blame for keeping those food cravings coming. Of course, your pleasure reward system logs all the food you like that tastes good, right? And then it's lodged in your amygdala. Your amygdala takes on experiences and logs them as good traumatic experiences or not. So when you like an ice cream or you like a sugary food, your brain remembers it as a dopamine stimulating sensory. And because of that, it's always going to crave or look for that and shut it in your memory. When you've been sitting down and you think about a food that you really, really enjoy, and now you have an appetite to eat like a whole pack of things, right? It's because of that process of your amygdala pulling up those images of that food and those senses of that smell. And it can make, having a healthy living lifestyle very, very difficult, right? In summary, we want people to eat less inflammatory foods, right? So we want people to eat from more left side of the screen, and hopefully your left side of the screen should be the spinach and the nuts and the cherry tarts and all these things that you're seeing. And not from the right side of the screen, which is the dairy, the processed meats, and all these kind of things of that nature. We don't want to eat from that side. On that side of the screen is where all the disease is waiting for you. On the left side of the screen has less probability towards disease, because 99% of diseases start in the gut, and the gut is your second brain. And that gut health is linked to mental health. So when you talk about anxiety and you talk about depression, you talk about all these things, the food you put in your body affects the neurotransmitters known as serotonin, right? Which modulates mood and modulates how you think and feel on a daily basis. So even when people are recovering from mental health, a healthy diet and exercise and rest and hydration is always introduced, because we have to get serotonin levels into a healthier space. Okay. So this is just a taste of just giving you an example of the kind of things we want to be promoting and teaching during our 6 weeks program. It's studying the intricacies of melanin and how our food selection has a lot to do with a lot of the diseases we deal with on a day-to-day basis, even affecting our psychology and our mental health. Because certain foods act as stimulants. You have something that's high in sugar, it's going to act as a stimulant. But if you're someone that has anxiety or panic attacks, you don't want to be eating things that are stimulants, because that's what it will escalate the anxiety to, a panic attack, right? If you're depressed and things of that nature, does it mean you have sugar to bring you up? No, sugar is going to bring you up and slam you down to the floor. It means that you need to regulate your hormones, because if you're depressed, serotonin is low. In men, for example, depression is linked to low levels of testosterone. So it means that when it comes to food, you've got to eat a balanced diet of things that stimulate human growth hormones, that stimulate the repair and regeneration of the right levels of cellular activity that help you feel strong and help you feel like yourself. So I hope that makes sense. So that's the end of my presentation. Hopefully that was very useful to everybody out there in social media land. And it's just giving you a taste of just how powerful self-knowledge is, and how when you learn about how influential this melanin is, you can really start to appreciate it more and value it more and build a lifestyle that's healthy, that's conscious, because you're trying to protect something that is deeply related to your existence from a mental point, from an emotional point, and from a physiological point.
Wow. When we did the intermittent fasting, I thought that was deep, but this is really deep, really deep. And it's like you were saying, it's about lifestyle choices, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
I like the way in which you actually break it down. And when you say, like, you know, when you show the slide, that is where disease is waiting for you. And it literally is just waiting for you.
Yeah, literally just waiting for us, man. It's just right there. And the stresses of just trying to just cook something quickly or order something, all of those stuff just puts us in that trap. So I want people to be aware of the trap so we can have a better fulfilled lives. And that's what it's about. It's about having a life that's healthy, strong. And that's what the Queen's Group promote, is strength, you know, self-discipline, looking after yourself, feeling good, looking like the Queen you are. So we're trying to push that point home, that your melanin is sacred, and let's treat it as such.
Absolutely. So I've had a quick look in the chat and there aren't any questions, but what we can do, all these wonderful kings and queens on the platform, if you'd like to ask Joe a question, Dorothy, hold on, Dorothy. So all that we ask, if you put your camera on so we can see who we're speaking to, and then you can go ahead and ask your question. So Dorothy, would you like to come on to the platform, my darling? Shall we, if you can unmute yourself and put your camera on and tell us where you're coming in from. Let's go to the other view. Right, let's ask to, oh, you're unmuted, wonderful.
Hi, I've just managed to unmute. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I don't look presentable to be on camera. I do apologize. I've done a lot today, rushed around, and I just about remembered 10 to 7 to jump on this because I knew that the information was going to be mind-blowing. And it is. I'm scribbling down notes, I'm taking screenshots, I'm turning my phone away when calls are coming through. Joe Dash, you're just amazing. A lot of the stuff you've covered, I've come across in the past, and you mentioned something that jumped out at me, only because I've done it myself before last year. Oh, you mentioned a 30-day fast.
Yes.
Was that water fasting? Were you talking about intermittent fasting? What fasting were you relating that to?
Yeah, so basically I was talking about an intermittent fasting program that we run with the Queen's Group, where it was 12 to 8, and it was just a fasting where we structure meals different that align them. Those meals align themselves with your hormonal balance and your circadian rhythm. It was about focusing on a balanced diet, hydration, exercise, rest, and finding ways in your lifestyle to kind of put that in a harmonious rhythm that kept you healthy and strong. So yeah, so you were having a smoothie, for example, and then you have your main meal and a lighter meal. So constructing the type of diet that sits well with gut health. So yeah, we were drinking water, we were having smoothies, we were having so many different delicious meals. You know, we were running, we were walking. It was such a cultural shift from just what we've been trained as Black people about food. And it was such a brilliant, powerful thing that we've done. You know, it's the best challenges I've run have been with the Queen's Group, I must say. Like it's been so great for me because a lot of the women on that group are representative of my mothers, my sisters, my aunties, and anytime we are of service to Black women, it's a powerful thing, and it's just so that we can tap into that fundamental basis of our civilization is our Black women. So that 30-day challenge wasn't a dry fast at all. It wasn't a liquid fast at all. It was about eating food, but eating the right food that was going to really enhance your existence and your abilities. People that with hypertension and high blood pressure saw massive changes. People that were diabetic saw their blood sugar levels go to amazing levels. People that had weight on were dropping off 2 stones. The whole challenge was like 2 stones to 1.5. People were seeing fat reduction. People were feeling good. People that were menopausal were sleeping for the first time in 3-4 years. So it was such a beautiful thing anytime that the ancestors give us a chance to empower our community. So that's really what it was about.
Awesome. Are you going to do another one?
Yes, definitely. Listen, when? I can't say no to Joan. So if Joan didn't really come to me, my answer is going to be automatically yes, because I'm just such a fan, and I love what Joan does, and she knows I love it to bits. And so we're going to arrange another one probably in April, because we're going to run a 6 weeks program of nutrition and melanin, because we need to get you to get knowledge of self first, because that knowledge of self is going to be the fundamental thing that's going to help you understand why you're drinking this kale smoothie at 12 p.m. in the middle of the day, right? You know what I mean? So we're going to give you a reason. So we're going to run this 6 weeks program of melanin and nutrition first. And then, of course, when John's ready, I'm clearing my schedule and we're going to run another one, possibly in April, maybe. But it's all down to when John's ready, we'll have that conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Welcome. Get ready, get ready, get ready. So have we got any more questions? Anybody else would like to ask Jo anything? This is an opportune time. Anybody would like to ask Jo any question? Let me see. Afria, I think that's who we've got here. How do we pronounce you? And do you want to come on camera?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, my darling.
Oh, brilliant. Unfortunately, like Queen Rudy, I too don't look that presentable. I've just put a mango face mask on and I haven't washed it off because I too almost forgot about this workshop as well. I have to admit. So I just quickly got on the Zoom and been blown away by the information that I've been privy to. Oh, wow. Excellent, absolutely excellent. And I too knew about a lot of the things that Jo, that you mentioned, but you know, the way you express is so very detailed, very eloquent. Anyway, my question to you, it's a bit of a weird one. As you was talking about like foods, the putrefaction of foods, right, and how like they deteriorate due to oxidation, it brought me to like when we die, you know, when we die, we're about to pass, because unfortunately I experienced someone who almost passed. And their hue, their physical hue really changed, and it got very condensed with carbon. So I just wanted to know if you could like briefly explain the process of that kind of deterioration regarding the physicality of humans when we are about to pass or when we do pass.
To be honest, when we pass, you know, back to the ground we return, our body, our decomposition of that carbon breaks down into other variations of carbon that's good for the soil. But also, when I talk about the oxidation process, I'm talking about when you're living. So I'm talking about when you get a tan. you know, when you get darker. So what's happening to you? Or when you have a baby and the baby's lighter and the baby starts to get dark, for example, or when you're pregnant, you see that black line in the middle of your stomach. I'm talking about life when it comes to melanin in that sense, in terms of melanogenesis. But when you die, it's the breaking down of that carbon molecule into a different state, because carbon will shift states in air, in material way, or in a different kind of substance. So in terms from a death point of view, your body will just break down into a different type of carbon, and that carbon will be part of the ecosystem that is life, to be quite honest. And even in culturally, different indigenous cultures, you know, when they spoke about death and breaking down of that molecule, is in different ways. But what we do understand is that it's carbon that's that's doing the transmutation, because carbon, when you're alive, it's electric, it has this electromagnetic field. So in Ampere's law in physics, when anything has electronic current running through it, it generates an electromagnetic field. But when you die, that current stops, and that electromagnetic field dies, and that carbon goes through a metamorphosis into something else. And because it's changing from one state of matter to another, we become part of that life cycle. But when it comes to melanogenesis and creating more melanin, or that oxidization you heard me talk about, that's just from life. That's just what happens if you go back to the Caribbean. And when you get darker, you know, your body goes through this amazing transformation where it starts to utilize energy better, especially when sun's available. But when it comes to death, it's just the breaking down and transformation of carbon from one state to another.
Thank you very much for that.
No worries, no worries.
Where can we find out about your workshop, your 6 weeks?
So this is what we're talking about right now. So this is what we're going to discuss. I'm going to put the link in the chat if you want to purchase it and stuff like that. On my website, joe-nutrition.com. I'm going to put that in the chat as well. You'll see the course sector with the brochure on it. The brochure will be there, so you can read about the 6 weeks program. All the brochure about the 6 weeks program that we're running with the Queen's Group is going to be there. And I'm going to put into the chat a discount code as well for the Queen's Group exclusively. So you guys can have a discount code for that. But the 6 weeks, all the information is coming into the chat in the next few seconds.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for being on the platform. Right, we've got Mel, who's got her hand up. Mel, are you looking beautiful? Would you like to put your camera on and come and ask Joe a question? Can we see Mel? Has she gone?
I'm here.
You're here? Ah, right. You jumped across a different part of the screen. I thought you disappeared. Hi, welcome, welcome, welcome. Where are you coming in from, Mel?
South London.
Oh, whoop, whoop. What would you like to ask Joe, my darling?
Yeah, so I recently went to the GP this week to get my bloods done. And I got a result on Friday saying my vitamin D levels were low. So would the melanin diet help at all with low vitamin D levels?
Absolutely, sister, absolutely. Because, you know, the way the research shows that when our vitamin D levels are low, we see a surge in depression, we see a surge in sadness, we see a surge in lack of motivation, we see a surge in menstrual cycles being very heavy when there's a lack of vitamin D in the Black woman. And we see a lot of fibroid behavior as well when there's a lack of vitamin D in the Black woman as well. But what I do suggest is that just take a supplement. You can take a supplement because vitamin D3, I don't know if you're vegetarian or vegan or plant-based or anything like that. Are you any of those things? Or are you a vegetarian?
I am, I'll say plant-based / vegan.
Okay, so if you're plant-based and vegan, it's very hard to get sufficient of vitamin D3 from plant-based stuff. So you have to just supplement it naturally. And supplementing it means if there is no sunlight, which would be the primary source for vitamin D3, you would have to supplement it. And unfortunately, the supplements are pulled from animal fat, just so you know. But there are some sort of algae that produce vitamin D3 in nature, but they're not that great in terms of raising your overall calciferol level. So vitamin D3, you could just supplement it, get 4,000 international units, and just have them daily, and then that will push your vitamin D level up, because low vitamin D levels become a problem when you're below 50 nanomoles. When you're below 50 nanomoles, that's when we start to see disease and things creep in. So if you're low on vitamin D, try and get outside a bit more often. Make sure you're sleeping good, sleeping at good time to let that melatonin kick in. Melatonin is also a catalyst and modulator for vitamin D synthesis. but just supplement it with a 4,000 international units vitamin D supplement. Trying to eat a balanced diet, because there's other food groups that reduce the amount of vitamin D levels in the body, like sugar will do that. And just try and take care of yourself from that point of view, and your vitamin D levels will come back up again by just having a supplement, to be fair.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
That's very helpful.
No worries.
Thank you very much.
Right, I've got a question in the chat here. So Dorothy's asking, what about, what's that? Infrared light to raise vitamin. Oh, sorry, that's a Freya. What about infrared light to raise vitamin D levels?
Infrared light won't raise vitamin D levels. You need ultraviolet light to raise vitamin D levels. But even that, nothing will beat sunlight. But having UV bulbs in the household does help from the mood point of view for Black people. But biologically, infrared light will not do anything great for the Black body. You need ultraviolet light. That's much more the suitable light for it. If you can have UVB bulbs in the house, that'd be great. But try and get more, just try and be outdoors. Just because the sun's not out doesn't mean you're not getting no vitamin D, by the way. That's a misconception by a lot of people. They think vitamin D is only available when the sun's out. No, daytime vitamin D is still coming through. It's just that way in England and everything's filtered through a grayish color, but you're still getting vitamin D. So get some night out as well. But infrared light won't increase vitamin D.
Okay. The next question I have is from Shinieri. I miss Montrese. She'll be back for you. She'll be back soon. She's so good at the chat.
All right.
Shinieri is asking, because the sun shines every day, should we go outside every day regardless of the weather?
Well, if it's raining, don't go outside. Or if it's snowing or icy or slippery, don't go outside. But yes, generally, I get exactly what you're saying. Definitely go outside and get some fresh air in general. If you go outside and get some fresh air, it's better for you. Your body will love you for it. There is still ultraviolet rays of sunlight coming through those clouds. Don't get it twisted. It might not be enough to raise the overall calciferol level, but it's better than locking yourself indoors all day. But obviously, if it's raining, if it's snowy, icy, no, I want people to be more safe. You're better off being safe. Don't want no one's falling down and breaking something. But generally speaking, yes, going outdoors, regardless if the sun is visible or not, you're still getting ultraviolet rays because it's daytime. You're still getting that, yeah.
Fantastic. And Dorothy is also asking, what time should we go to sleep every night?
We should be going to bed around 9:30, because most of your cognitive cellular repair happens between 10 and 12. So that first half of sleep is so important, and we miss out on it on so much. But that 10 to 12 is very important. That's when melatonin is at its highest, and melatonin modulates human growth hormones. Human growth hormones is very important for your immune system, your recovery, your performance, your energy levels, your appetite, all of those things. So try to get to bed 9:30, 10 o'clock is ideal.
Well, that's fantastic. Right, any more questions? Now is an opportune time to ask. King Joe, anything? Oh, there's another question here. Colleen is asking, do you have a shopping list that will guide us to prepare the meals to help a healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, when we run the 30-day challenge, that's something we have exclusively on there, which will run in April. Or if you join the 6 weeks program that we're putting together, me and Joan and Rudy and such, then I'll be giving so much gems on what kind of food groups you're going to learn the science or what kind of food groups you should be leaning into and why it's so important for your existence, especially the knowledge of you might have a daughter or someone in your family that wants to give birth to a child. We need to put them on a diet. There needs to be a prenatal diet that's able to push on those genetic markers that remove disease on our own. But we can't do that if we don't understand how melanin as a biological element works. And this is why now we've been running the program, myself and Joan and Rudy, for months now. So now it's about deep dive into the science so you can understand why things like the 30-day challenge make sense. So it's a lot of things. And because when we do the program, we'll have different conversations. But if you want to understand more what works for you specifically as a Black woman in your own specific way, with your own hormones, you have to book a consultation for that.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Right, Shaneri is asking, what is the relationship between food and spirituality?
Oh,
That's a
can't
really
answer
good
that.
one.
You're gonna have to join the course, because I've got a whole lecture on spirituality and food that you're gonna love. That's going to blow your mind of how easy I'm gonna make it for you to be able to have those deep dreams and connections with the creator. I'm going to change a lot of things by giving you some of the ancestral knowledge that I found and the deep dive science to back it. But yeah, so there's a big, massive connection between food and spirituality. Disbelieve. What I'll leave you with is that spirituality is a mixture of purification. Fasting is involved. When you couldn't go into certain temples back in the day if you didn't fast, right? Fasting is a purification of the blood. That's the whole point of fasting, right? And through the blood, do we start to generate or be able to transcribe the solar information, the photons I spoke about, which I'm going to talk, when I go into this deep into the 6 weeks program, it's going to blow your mind, but I'll give you a little bit. But just know those photons have cosmic information in them. But if your blood is tainted with processed food and junk food and all this stuff, you make it harder for the body temple to take that information and transcribe it into your DNA. So that's why eating healthy is such a powerful thing.
Thank you for that, Joe. Verona Green, welcome to the platform. She asks, do you agree with vegan protein shakes?
No, I'm not a big fan of whey protein and a lot of the vegan processed foods. Vegetables, complex carbs, proteins. This is the way forward. Different strokes for different folks when it comes to giving out nutritional advice. This is why I do consultations, or I do the 30-day program, or in this case, we're doing a 6 weeks program where we really dive into it, because I can't give generic information, because everyone's body biologically is different and there's slight differences.
Thank you. And Sharon, welcome to the platform, my darling. She says that she does shift work and finds it hard to make lunchtime her main meal, which leaves her body feeling really sluggish.
Right.
So anything we can suggest?
To be honest, meal prep.
Yeah.
Meal prep is the best way. Meal prep is everything. If you meal prep, then you don't have to come and scatter around in the kitchen looking for things. I know how that is. When you finish work, ain't nobody got time to be standing in front of the stove trying to cook up a whole gourmet course. You know what I mean? So meal prep, plan, food plan, track things, be conscious about what you put into this temple. Because the reason why fibroids is such a big thing amongst Black women is because they're not taking care of this temple enough. They put in hormone-based foods in their body, and it's causing fibroids in the womb of the Black woman. And that's a problem. But in order to combat that, plan your food. Make sure you're eating food for a nutritionist point, not just an emotional point. And that's the difference. You got to be able to shift to, okay, what is going to nourish me on a day-to-day basis and strengthen me versus what do I like and what makes me feel great? Because that feeling is short-lived. You get that dopamine hit and then it becomes a whole big problem.
Yeah. I hear you. It really is. Once you do the challenge and you get into it's the science, like you say. I mean, you've named it so aptly. It's such a deep, program. It's just such a deep understanding. So I'm looking forward to it all starting. I'm really, really excited. Really excited. We've got Faye. You've come up as Faye X, and she's just really bigging up the program. She did it back in November.
Oh, Faye! Wow.
And I was Faye, please unmute yourself and come on the platform and just tell us all about it. And your experience as well. Are you there, Faye? Let me see if I asked to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, my darling.
Sorry. And Jordan know that I don't show my face. But I met Jordan on your program in November. I came on it the day, what was it, October, November? The 31st of October I came on, and then the following day it was starting, something like that. And then I just bought loads of fruits the day before. I thought, oh no, and vegetables, oh no, but that's what the program was involving. So I put my son in it, and he didn't know I was going to put him on, and he was so angry. Oh, he's fuming, but he's got no regrets now. I feel so healthy. I feel so great, and I keep telling everyone about your program, Jordan.
Oh,
please try it. It's worth it. It's transformed my life and my son's life.
Oh,
So
thank you.
please try it. It's a brilliant program. It's great to know
Thank you
about
so
our
much.
Black culture and our melanin. So try it.
Ah,
Nothing to
thank you,
lose,
Faye.
got nothing to lose but weight. Healthy life. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Faye.
Bye.
Amazing. And we've got Timeless. So where are you, Timeless? Can you come on? You're somewhere in the Caribbean, enjoying yourself.
I am.
How are you, my darling?
I'm good. I'm absolutely good. And, you know, it's just fabulous hearing Joe again, you know. I've just sent him a message. I've just sent you a message, Joe, saying, you know, your intermittent fasting course I did is still living within me. It's taught me a lot. I share a lot of what you've taught me with others. It's
Thank you.
almost, I feel like a teacher. I go around telling people, hey, you know, but I have to say, I've been in the Caribbean from December, and it's very, very, very difficult to maintain what you are telling us Black people what we need to do.
Right.
Diet. The food out here is so high with sugar,
Yeah.
very high with salt. When I do look for the stuff that you say, you know, the earth, the natural food, you know, there's not a lot of it.
Yeah.
I can't find spinach, I can't find cabbage, I can't find, you know, lots of those green apples.
Yeah.
And when I do find it costs how much pound for one?
That's the problem. It's a problem in the Caribbean and in Africa as well. This is what the residue of colonialism is that even in on our home soil, we can't even find the proper ingredients for our own health. And it's so bad. Like I've got friends in St. Vincent, different places in Barbados, and they're like, look, I can't find. And I'm like, imagine on a Caribbean island, you can't find the indigenous food that our ancestors left behind, right? Because the economics of things is just different over there, where all the things you need that are good are skyrocket high prices, but everything is sugar and accessible because we want to be westernized so much that we completely abandon what is good for us.
As to sugar and salt, right? It's exactly that.
Yeah.
And I made a broth the other day, and I didn't put no sugar, no salt, nothing. It was just a tuna fish, the green banana. You all call it chocho, we call it Christophine, right? And that was it. And pepper, onion, and garlic. And you know, my family thought, my God, what is that? Yeah, it almost made me feel that I can't cook. Because of my change of diet, because of what you taught me, because of what I learned, because of what I got to understand about my condition as a diabetic. And you know something, they could not, they literally covered their food in salt.
Yeah, all day. That's my mom will put salt on the rice and season the food. Yeah. You're just like, this is too much salt. And then, you know, we shame and say white people don't season their food properly. But it's like, I think they know something we don't, because that salt has killed more Black people than anything. Like salt is such a poisonous thing when it's refined and it's in that space. So is sugar. So, you know, in any scenario, remember, just as long as you have a lot of veg on your plate, you're doing the right thing, because introducing more veg is great. Drink water, keep your exercise, get your food, do the best you can.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, do the best you can, sister. That's all you can do. Yeah, that's all. At least you got sunlight, you got the sunlight giving the vitamin D, and you got
absolutely.
Yeah, so you're gonna be all right.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
No worries, no worries. Can we take one more question? One more question before I need to go fly off.
Right, okay. We've got this is from, what do you think about us growing our own food? That's from Chineri again.
Yes, ideal. That'd be ideal. You can get a plot of land, put money together with friends and family, and grow food. That just makes sense. We can do it now. You can get a glass house, different things, get together, get a plot of land and grow some food. That makes sense. That makes all the sense in the world. For those who can't do it, find someone who can do it, link up with them, if it's money you guys put in the pot or whatever to share the land makes financially more sense, then do it. If you can do it on your own in your back garden, brilliant. But definitely you can make cabbage, you can do tomatoes, you can do, you know, cucumbers, you can do certain fruits that are good in the winter time as well and seasonal. Just educate yourself. You can definitely do it. I do advocate that more and more people grow their own food. Definitely.
Wonderful. So Joe, can you tell us about the program again as we're coming to an end?
Yes, so here's the program. It's a 6 weeks program that we put together with the Queen's Group. It's a 6 weeks program on a deep dive of melanin. We go into the spirituality, we go into the physiology, we go into the psychology. I've got so much great information to give you. I've got so much gems that my people need to see. Your empowerment is my empowerment. I want to see us remove ourselves from disease. I want to see us be strong. I want to see us be able to live longer in a more healthy way. I don't want us to lose family members and lose things based on just miseducation of how we manage our diet. So the 6 weeks program deep dives into nutrition and then finishes it off by understanding melanin. So we do the melanin first and then we deep dive, finish off with the nutrition. So the melanin, so you can understand the science, the mechanisms of what makes you smile, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what makes you feel sick, what makes you feel great, what makes you give you energy, what makes you feel weak. You're gonna learn all of those things and you're gonna learn about what food groups to use. You're gonna learn what minerals they are, what vitamins are available, even some herbs I'm gonna throw in there. You're gonna learn exactly why sugar is a bad thing for the body and how to eat in different certain scenarios and things of that nature, but mostly understanding the basic anatomy of the Black human being and why we are what we are, how that how that reflects in mental health, how that reflects in personal health, emotional health, psychological health, spiritual health. So it's 6 weeks of deep dive information. Today was just a taster, just to introduce you to some concepts, and we're going to deep dive into conversations. We're going to have a WhatsApp group as well, where we share information. I'm going to put in articles and bombard you with different information that's going to empower you and your family. So 6 weeks course starts in March, from the 1st of March to mid-February, every Sunday. We will be recording this. If you miss any one of the lectures, the recording will be sent to you. And I'm gonna create a study group for people that want to deep dive and do Q&As on, to pick, if you want to have a chance to pick my brain about how melanin and what functions from an ancient point to a modern day point. So this six weeks program is one of my favorite things to do. I love lecturing. I love speaking with my people and engaging in deep philosophical knowledge. And it's something that I really enjoy, and I think people will enjoy in learning, growing, and you're going to walk away from this program having the mind of a mad scientist. You're going to understand exactly what, where, how, and when. You know what I mean? And that's going to empower you for a lifetime. This is something you share with your family. These are things, your children might have children and they need to learn how to eat for their genetics. This is about genetic inheritance. You know what I mean? And for those who haven't got a copy of my book, when you sign up for this project, just send me an email saying that you want a copy of the book and you get it for free for being part of the program. But my book deep dives into the understanding of melanin, so I think it will benefit you in such a massive way. So I've put the information into the chat, and we will be reconvening. I'll do a part 2 of this later on in the month as well, to continue the conversation. But yeah, definitely go on my website as well, joe-nutrition.com as well, because if you go joe-nutrition.com, the brochure's on that website as well, so it gives you a chance to really read through the brochure, see what the modules are, see what's happening and things of that nature. So if you go on to joe-nutrition, you know what I mean, if you want to learn. So I'll put my website in the chat as well. So just use that, take that, and go and learn, and go on my website and you can read the brochure and it'll give you the whole layout of the 6 weeks. But trust me, you want to get on this project. There's a discount code that I've also put in the chat as well, Queens 22. And then that will give you a big discount on the program as well for all the Queens. Register is a £50 discount, so you get a whole £50 chunk off of the price of the course. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your time, Joan. It's always love. I love the whole Queens Walking Group. So for people that want to know more, check in with Joan. Go on the website joe-nutrition.com. I put the website also in the chat as well if you want to get the discount code and so forth. If you want to register to the program that starts in March, it's every Sunday.
Yeah, okay, because somebody just put that in the chat. When is it starting? So
Yes, it
first
starts on the
Sunday,
first of in March, the first Sunday in March.
first Sunday in March, and it's just for 6 weeks.
6 weeks. So every Sunday we get together, we deep dive into to what I'm talking about. We have conversations, we break down things. You can ask questions. You can deep dive into what your own understanding of melanin is. Yeah, and the discount is only for the Queen's group as well. So I put it in the chat as well. The discount is for the Queen's group. Everyone else pays full price. Only the Queen's group get a discount and stuff like that. It's going to be in the evenings. I will be lecturing in the evenings. So around 7 o'clock. I'm still going to confirm all of that with Joan, but it will be every Sunday evening. Starts from the first Sunday in March for 6 weeks to the mid-April. If you miss any one of them, it's not a problem. All of it will be recorded and sent to you, so you have it. And so forth. And we're also going to have a study group, a WhatsApp group as well, where you can ask questions, and I'll be putting articles in it when I can, and we'll be having conversations inside the group as well, and things of that nature. Or we might set up a Zoom call where everyone in the group is doing a study group where we talk about what we learned in class. So it's going to be amazing. So if you enjoyed anything you heard today, go and register right now. Is the best thing to do. A massive discount.
Yeah.
So
And someone's just put in there what time. So it's around, you said 7 o'clock we should be you're going to be starting. So it's 6 weeks and you should kick off at 7 o'clock on a Sunday evening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, let's draw this session to a close. So we've had another amazing evening with the wonderful Jo Dash, the Science of Melanin and Nutrition. The course starts in March and I'm really excited about it, because, you know, a lot of us have got the book and we're just going to get really deep into the science, into the history, you know, our Black history, the connection between melanin. It is deep, really, really deep. So if you really want to, you know, enhance your knowledge and to hear about this information from our perspective, I'm really excited. I can't wait. You know, you think you sort of like know it all, but there's so much information out there that's been hidden from us, you know. So Joe is going to unpack it all, and he gets deep. Even I can, like, my head spins sometimes when he's speaking. So, you know, you're going to be really students at Joe's university. And it's an exclusive university. So yeah, we're really, really looking forward to this course kicking off. And it's about the knowledge you share, that we learn, we can share with our friends, our family, because, you know, the whole agenda really is to get our community healthy. We want our community to be well. And like they say, knowledge is power. So, you know, I remember from our early discussions, Joe, that's one of the things that really resonated between, you know, the three of us, that we want our community to be healthy. We don't want disease to be, you know, taking them unnecessarily, when we can empower them to make different lifestyle and food choices. Once you know what to eat, you know, you can avert all this, you know, disease that is waiting out there. It's about the system that we're in, and there are different foods that we can eat. There's, you know, just making those simple lifestyle changes and choices. So I'm really excited, really excited. So as I draw the session to the end, can I just thank everybody for being on the Queen's platform, as you know. And I remember when I was Zooming in the early days, and I'd often say to you in my opening introduction that I run a walking group, and the only reason why I was Zooming was because we can't walk. But we are now back walking on a Saturday morning. I think there's some information in the chat about the walking group and all the different walking groups that are up and down the UK now. I think it's about 20 groups. So if anybody wants to join, please get in touch with us. But we run the walking group, and the walking group will be 2 years in July. So we're having a wonderful Queen's anniversary celebration dinner and dance. And we'd love anyone who's been on the platform, who's been, you know, who are part of the walking groups, but who's been on the platform on this journey with us. So November last year was a year. I can't believe I spent a year of my life Zooming. So that's been an absolute amazing experience. It really has. And it's helped us to connect with the wider community up and down the UK. So we've got friends all over the country now. We've got our Queen friends in Manchester, Luton, Harrow and Stanmore, even like locally, you know, we've got the Queens in Brixton, Streatham. It's just been a really you know, enriching experience. And it's just nice that we as a community, we can just all connect up and we all share the same kind of like philosophy and ideals. And in a way, we're on the same agenda. So yes, we've got the Queen's anniversary dinner coming up. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, we did a half a marathon last week. And just to thank everybody who has donated, who supported us, you know, we walked 13 miles last Saturday. Some of us came back quite hardy and strong, and there were others who were a little bit, you know, battered. But the main thing is that we accomplished. We completed the walk, 13 miles up in London. It was a beautiful day. And we raised just over £2,000 for Urban Synergy, a fantastic Black-led charity in the Borough of Lewisham. And if anybody wants to contribute, please go on to the Just Giving page. And it's the Queen's Walking Group. And you'll find all the information there. So please keep giving. It's a wonderful charity. We've also got the Queen's and Rudy J Media Easter Cultural Markets coming up. One on Sunday the 10th in April in venue 28. And we also have our Good Friday Easter Cultural Market, 15th of April up at Beckenham Place Park in the Mansion House. So again, you know, please hook us up for further information. We've got the information, the flyers are out. If anybody who's in business would like to come and have a stall at the market, please get in touch. We've got a couple of spaces at both venues. The downstairs in venue 28, those stall spaces are sold out, but we've got a couple of spaces in the upper hall. And in the mansion house, we have a couple of spaces in each of the beautiful mansion in the rooms. So they've all got names, the dining room, the drawing room, and I forget the other one. So yeah, please get in touch. We love showcasing our wonderful Black businesses that are out there in the community. They are amazing, absolutely amazing. We've got more Zooms coming up. So please follow us on Eventbrite, Queen's Walking Group. Then you get the instant notifications of what's going to be happening. What else have I got to tell you? This has been streamed through Facebook, so you can watch this again if you think you've missed anything, or you know, you can share the link with your friends and family. So it's been streamed through to Facebook, We Love Health and Wellbeing page, and it's also been live streamed through to our YouTube channel, which is Queen's 2020 Lockdown Series. So please follow us, please like, subscribe, and all the other things you need to do on YouTube to be kept informed when we release new videos. We've also got the newsletter. So if we have any poets or storytellers or anyone, you know, who'd like to make a contribution to the newsletter, we just released one yesterday. Please get in touch. Please sign up. If you want to receive the newsletter on a regular basis, get in touch and we can send you the link so you can sign up. And again, it's a way of keeping the information out in the community. And if anything, it's about showcasing us. And what do I always say? If we don't do things to showcase ourselves, who's going to do it for us? So on that note, I want to wish you all a wonderful evening. Thank you once again for joining us on the Queen's platform. I'll be back in a few weeks' time with another Queen's Zoom session in the evening. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and keep healthy, keep the vibrations high, and keep well. Good night. Have a wonderful evening. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Right, we can. Hi, everybody. If you want to unmute, you can quickly unmute. I've got 2 minutes.